and I think we touched on this before too, but you keep seeing, I keep seeing these headlines for people like, oh, well, because student population's coming down, like it's going to be really big problems in student properties. And I can tell you around the major schools
they're generalizing too much.
Yeah. Around the major schools, what we're seeing is that is not the case at all. It's like the exact opposite. Mm-hmm. There is like no shortage of demand we're looking at doing a bunch of work to this place and adding maybe an extension or a floor or something like that. And these kids were just like, please don't kick us out. Like we don't know if we're going to find another place. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, no, we're not. That's not the point. Like we wouldn't do that to them. But there's just mm-hmm. And then CIBC put out a chart recently, and that chart, if you looked at their forecast for the number of just overall students of post-secondary students in Canada, it's supposed to dip probably not even 10%. Looking at this chart, there's no actual numbers there. It's supposed to, I'd say maybe 5% or somewhere between 5% and 10% from now through 2026, only to go back up. And by 2028, which isn't a long ways away, right, 3 years, it's going to be back to where it was now and then higher past that. That's even with these changes to international students because of the increase because they see the international students coming back and the increase in Ontario high school students that are going to university, because that number has increased. Sorry, not just Ontario, like across Canada, but the Ontario numbers increased from 80,000 to about 90,000 over the last few years as well. So which is a 15% jump, which is backfilling a lot of that type of stuff. So you're just kind of seeing, these trends. So everyone's always focused on the short-term immediate thing, like, oh my God, the sky's falling. I'm like, hey, just zoom out a little bit. Like what's likely to happen here, right?
It was interesting, I think, like 10 years ago when we started seeing like schools of like, remember the old building that we were in? There was like two different schools. The people who rented our own office, I think it was another school. It was just multiple schools.
Those random, yeah.
Like it was just tiny little campuses that could seat 20
it was like
people.
Tom and Nick's University, and then you would enroll 100 people at however much a month.
Yeah,
it was a total scam.
About like Western or Queens or Brock.
Those things
University
were a total scam, and they were always a total scam. And finally, it came out that they were a scam.
And some of them grew big. We don't have to name names, but some of the colleges really kind of almost blew up in enrollment.
Well, I think it's out. I mean, Conestoga, I'll name the name. I think there's all sorts of numbers about how
there must be others.
There's others, but it's just how reliant they went on international students, and it's just a number of the college. It feels like the colleges more than the universities overall.
Well, probably the barrier to entry was lower.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And then people were showing up and not even going to their program, but they were already in the country.
Well, then we got wind. I remember some people started telling us they knew people coming into the country, enrolling in those programs. That's how they came in as a student. Then they would get a job as like a truck driver, long haul driver. Remember that one?
Yeah.
It was a long haul driver. And as soon as they secured the employment as a long haul driver, they could quit they dropped out of the school like within the first 3 months. And now, because they had that job, Canada wouldn't kick them out, and they were in the country as like a long haul. Do you remember someone telling us that?
Yeah, I know. At one point, you could, if you got accepted as a student, you could bring your spouse, and they were able to work.
Yeah.
Right.
So so it's just kind of that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So I mean, it's just like it was total. I mean, it was totally abused. Like it's very obvious now that it was totally abused.
What has changed about that one student rental that you just recently brought up of ours that we were going to do? Like, what was the thinking change on that?
No, so this is interesting because we were just talking about AI. Basically, I spent a half hour with AI explaining some things about some of the options we were looking at. And we're like, well, what if
you had to
this?
teach AI what you were about to ask it a bit?
No, I didn't teach it at all. I just started asking questions with any data that I had. Like I had what's outstanding on the mortgage? What's the rough property value? How much income can it generate? Whatever, like just standard stuff. But I started throwing it in. I'm like, we're thinking about doing this versus this. What if we combine, there was questions like, what if we refinance and use some of the money for this? And then we took a little bit of let's say we took out $250,000 and we used it for renovations, and we put in, we took another 50 and we put it into Bitcoin, and based on this number, what would that be? If the house was appreciating at this number historically versus this number, how would that financially compare to this other alternative? It was flipping awesome. Like it was awesome. It was like having a conversation with someone that could just think well, and it just gave us all sorts of different options. And, that's what got me thinking. And then then it was basically talking to Victoria, who was in here at one of our team meetings, when and I just had to clarify what some of the zoning kind of restrictions were now, because I didn't know the latest.
Like the lot coverage,
the lot coverage and parking requirements, because that was a big one before when we were looking at this type of stuff.
Parking. Yeah,
there was because there are a lot more. I shouldn't say lenient. The rules have changed now with what's required, right? So and then when she was able to say like, yeah, I think you're able to get this now, it became an attractive option to potentially redevelop a portion of that.
You can see how real estate investing is morphing in front of our eyes. And I don't know if that's just the maturation of a real estate investor, but like with Craig Race, what he was talking about, how more people are doing laneway housing and kind of garden suites in Toronto, and how the numbers are, and Victoria Swen was talking about the same thing. And now we're talking about doing this particular property is a Hamilton property. You can see the opportunity, because if you can turn a single family home in one of these areas into like a multi-unit, the number, and do it so that it fits with the neighborhood and the whole thing. But the numbers on these properties, these aren't massive construction projects. These are totally doable for anyone who's in real estate investing. And now all of a sudden the cash flow numbers on these things are coming drastically different.
Yeah.